Hello, my name is Mitch, and I draw Blood Force. And today we're taking a look at Walt Simonson's, Marc Silvestri's Cyber Force number 0. Made by Walt Simonson, but owned by Marc Silvestri. So this was an odd little book, came out about a full year after the number 1 on the Cyber Force miniseries came out. If you'll recall, the schedule was pretty rough. Cyber Force number 1 comes out October of 1992. Cyber Force number 2 in March. So we had about 6 months there. Number 3 in May. Number 4 in July. Now you can, if you're Marc Silvestri, you can maintain interest on a bi-monthly schedule. You can totally do that. This is not okay. There's 6 months in between. If you look at the numbers, the reported numbers anyway, like I said before, numbers from this period are very squishy. I think they're still kind of squishy. But oftentimes, like Spawn number 1 and 2 both sold, Spawn number 2 dropped off, but it was still selling like 700,000 plus. Wildcats number 2, same thing. Youngblood number 2, I'm pretty sure same thing. So Cyber Force number 1, that one only sold 750,000, and Cyber Force number 2 is not on the list of the top selling books of all time that anybody knows about. So I figure maybe Marc Silvestri learned a bit of a lesson there that you can't go half a year and maintain people's interest even if your name is Marc Silvestri. And he's got a Cyber Force, the number 1, coming out, scheduled for November of 1993. And that's a 5-month gap in between number 4 of the miniseries and the relaunch. Now, I don't know if he could have gotten Cyber Force number 1 out earlier. Maybe he didn't want to rush himself, but he wanted to fill that gap anyway. And it seems like the way he decided to do that was to hire Walt Simonson to come out with a number 0 book. And number 0 books were kind of popular at the time. I just talked about Youngblood number 0. And Youngblood number 0 had come out in December of 1992. It had been out for a while. So it wasn't a direct, I'm following in Rob's footsteps thing, but it was out there at that point. We're Image Comics, we do number 0s on books. So this was totally an option. And I don't think this was a story Walt was dying to tell exactly. But, I have heard that this is the biggest check Walt Simonson ever got by what sounds like a wide margin. So I think he was down for it. So he's going to start off. It's interesting because it's an old school guy. Walt Simonson started in the 70s. This is the 90s now. We make comics differently. So seeing a 70s guy, a dynamic 70s guy, try to adapt to the Image style. So we're going to go with a double splash page cover. It's not super dynamic. It's not one of his best ones. Like, it doesn't top that Fantastic Four issue that we saw there. But it's all right. It's a bunch of dudes, and it's very colorful. But see, he misses a trick because there's no Ripclaw on this cover. There's not much Ripclaw in the issue either. But you can't just leave your Wolverine off the cover. Even if he shows up in a panel, you put him front and center. That was the new Fantastic Four by Art Adams. They did that trick where they pretended the Punisher was going to show up at some point. And then, oh, yeah, he was here in the last panel. This half-obscured helicopter pilot. All right, so I tried to switch things around a little bit so there's a bit less glare. So this is, let's see, Cyber Force number 0. Art by Walt Simonson. Plot by Marc and Eric Silvestri and Walt Simonson. Script by Walt Simonson. So this is basically a Walt Simonson production, and then he goes to the Silvestri brothers and goes, does this look all right? And they go, sure. And yeah, off you go. And this is also going to be lettered by John Workman. I'm not familiar. And colored by Joe Chiodo. Yeah, I kind of am. He was doing most of the homage stuff at this time, I believe. And so we're going to start out, and we're going to start out with some Looney Tunes-esque, throwing shit off to the side, and all sorts of sound effects here. Crash, crunch, pa-thump, blang. But they found the thing they they were looking for. These are the shock troopers. These are the bad guys from the Cyberforce miniseries. I don't particularly remember their names. That's okay. I'm pretty sure we'll find out what they are. So he does, some stuff that I don't see a lot from him. I'll be honest, I haven't checked out a lot of Walt Simonson stuff. But he's going for a lot of really big images, like almost splash page stuff. And then double splash page. And, for Cyberforce jumping in to save the day. And, so in case you forgot the names of these guys like I did, Walt Simonson is going to remind us who everybody is. So we get Buzzcut, Psychotron, Killjoy, and Megawatt in that order. And if we forget who the Cyberforce guys are, Heatwave, Psyblade, take the 2 on the right. Ripclaw, Impact, take the 2 on the left. I don't recognize number 5. Neither do I. That's it's some new guy who's basically just been come up with for this particular issue. And we're going to get a very Eric Larson looking knockout shot here. So yeah, I'm pretty much convinced that Eric Larson read early Walt Simonson when he was young. And then the shock troopers throw grenades to escape. Stryker grabs the new guy, Ace of Blades, which is not really, I would say, an image name. I'm wondering if Walt Simonson came up with that name. He might have. But they skedaddle. And we're seeing more of these just about splash pages, but with insets to kind of, so you're not just spending 5 seconds on the page and moving on. You actually have to read some shit. And the Cyberforce guys are kind of talking to each other a little differently. Again, this is Walt, I think. And it makes it a bit more readable, actually. Not a lot's going on, but it's, I don't know, this is an old school comic guy making sure that he's not losing the audience, it feels like. Making sure everybody knows who everybody is, and everybody talks about what's going on, and they crack jokes to each other, and they keep it entertaining. And then the place blows up, and big old shock trooper helicopter flies away with all sorts of great Walt Simonson-y lines all over it. He's got that particular way of rendering metal. And it's like, yeah, okay, I've seen enough Walt Simonson. I know exactly the texture he's going for there now. See, gets it on. Stryker there too. All over the place. And then the hospital takes these 2 away and they have their conversation. And again, we're committing to the splash page gimmick. And it's, I don't know that it was necessary. I'm not going to, second guess Walt Simonson, It's just, it feels like these 2 pages probably could have been compressed. Like, this is a large panel here. This is a small panel off to the side. Maybe that would have been too cramped, probably. I mean, this all works fine. See, now we're looking at the problems I have with laying out pages. And now we got splash page of a doctor talking to 2 patients. And this is more of, Walt Simonson is this is how you do 90s comics, right, guys? It's like, yeah, you got it, Walt. And they're talking about how they pulled a microchip out of Ace of Blades' head. And now we're going to find out the history of the microchip. So, turns out Stryker was previously on the Shock Troopers, along with Heatwave. These guys we already know, that's Killjoy, that's Megawatt was the other guy? No. Megawatt is this guy. The guy's Psychotron. Okay. Those are some imagey names. And then this character, Misery, who will soon show up in the 4-issue crossover between Cyberforce and Wildcats. And this just reinforces my theory that Eric Larson read a lot of Walt Simonson when he was younger, because that's an Eric Larson face if I've ever seen one. And some of the colors in this issue work, some of them don't. I feel like they really do on this guy here. Particularly because Joe Chiodo did color Cyberforce #1 as well. Maybe part of the problem is that it wasn't on the glossy paper, but that looks way better now. And it helps that he's like a guy and not an effect. You know, and Walt Simonson knows how to draw Human Torch-looking characters. And also, these don't have, if you'll recall from my revisit of Cyberforce #1, we've thrown aside, at least for this issue, the washed out colors. We're not committing to that anymore. So that's interesting. Because this is some vibrant purples, vibrant yellows, you know. And yeah, so as the shock troopers there, you know, they're doing whatever for cyber data. They're stealing some shit and making a mess. And Stryker gets thrown clear, and we're getting giant shots of guys breaking panel borders, and it's all very chaotic. The sound effects really contribute to that, actually. It just, you know, blam blam, blam blam, and more blam blam, and flash, and like, you know, these are kind of, I don't know, simplistic sounds, I suppose, but just the number of them kind of adds to the chaos. It's an interesting effect. Yeah, it just feels like there's all sorts of crazy shit going on. And then he gets taken back to the cyber data operating room, which is, again, a splash page with smaller insert panels. And the guy who's operating on him notices this chip that's in his brain, and steals that. And his superior, Dr. Herzog, Dr. Werner Herzog, yeah, Dr. Herzog right there, pops in, and we get a full splash page of him going, But yeah, I like this effect here with the high-tech operating room. That's some good stuff. And then we're cutting to outside of him. This is the doctor who stole that chip from Stryker's brain. And Heatwave and I guess maybe one of the new recruits, Warblade, who ends up on Wildcats. They're having a tussle. Or maybe I guess it's a training session. Yeah. And Heatwave's being affected by this character Misery. And this is kind of setting up the crossover thing that's going to be coming up soon. And here's another shock troop that we didn't see in that last outing, and that's Cyblade, who eventually escapes to join Cyberforce. So yeah, like a whole bunch of these characters that we know as being enemies and stuff. They were all on the same team at one point, and they're examining the chip that they stole out of Stryker's head, and it turns out it was basically controlling his brain and making him more violent and more loyal and stuff. Cyblade's got one too. We're going to take that out. Don't you worry about it. Except that the shock troopers show up to recapture the Doctor, recapture Stryker, and Cyblade too, I suppose. But Cyblade manages to get out, and I gotta love this leap out here. You get dynamic shots, some dynamic panel borders. We're not really committing to the full page thing anymore. I feel like there was a bit of improv in the page layouts. It wasn't maybe it wasn't done all at once, because we're having to compress stuff a little bit to get to the end of the story. Maybe if you had made a full page about an ambulance driving in, I don't know. It's just me. So continuing the story of the shock troopers here anyway. Warblade's in on the next attack, along with Cyblade. They didn't come on the last one. And they're wasting a drug dealer, but then they get halted by, what's his name? Backlash, and this guy with the, Flashpoint. Flashpoint's the name. Nailing's my game. Ooh. And we get these great, like a Cyclops blast kind of effect. Again, you wouldn't see this in an Image comic normally. I feel like it's a little too abstract. This is pure Simonson, where it's kind of cartoony looking, and you know exactly what's going on, and you get so you get a shot that you wouldn't normally be able to get from an Image comic, and I like this effect here, which again is kind of abstract. And if you were to take this photo, it wouldn't make a lot of sense, but obviously she's switching on the chip in Heatwave here, and the dialogue kind of reinforces it. Just want to make sure everything is perfectly clear, and Heatwave has to go after Cyblade now. But one of the Stormwatch members, Nautica, has control of water. That's basically telekinesis, right? It's not like the water. Anyway, doesn't matter. Knocks him out with the water from the pipe. And she has the controller thing from that doctor that got kidnapped, and she's able to switch off the chip in Heatwave there, and they're going to. This is the new purpose of Cyberforce, is to free cyber data people, cyborg people. I guess there's a bunch of those, and turn off their chips, and then use them against cyber data. And Stryker and Chip and the Doctor and this other guy have all been kidnapped, but Stormwatch is to the rescue, and we get some great. This is just a great action shot. Like for a 2-page spread here, Stryker's friggin' huge. This pose here, I feel like I've never seen in an Image comic before. And this is just, it's Walt Simonson who, knows how to draw, but he's trying to draw kind of imagey, so he's doing action shots. But we get shots that don't necessarily show up in your average Image comic, because they're not that kind of good, maybe. I don't know. And yeah, so Heatwave's been freed now. Cyblade's been freed. Stryker, we're getting well on our way to making the team here. And Cyberdad is going to escape. They're going to blow up the building. Big Chris Eliopoulos looking lettering here. And then, so that's the story of taking the chip out of Ace of Blades' brain. It's like, wow, we invested a whole issue into this guy, kinda. So I guess he's joining the team now. Hey, nope, he's retiring to the suburbs. It's like, okay, that's an option too. And then the hospital blows up. Well, I guess it's not an option. And the good old-fashioned Cyberdata chopper is speeding away. And maybe this is where the cheesiness stops being as effective. I've just about had it with that crummy chopper. It's like, dude, you just told him your entire life story, and it was like, all right, I'm happy that you get to retire and not be a cyborg goon anymore. Good for you, buddy. And then a hospital full of people blows up, including that dude, and just like, man, that chopper's so crummy. It's showtime. Although I like the time-lapse thing here. Aim, fire, wait, and then I want to get this one right. Sploram. Okie dokie. Curtain, that one's for you, Jamie, who just died. But we got to kind of wrap up this issue. This is the last page. Looks like neither of us gets a house in the burbs. Well, I could, I suppose. You definitely won't. All right. And, yep, there's that character that we just saw and have never seen before, Misery. And she's going to be, starring in the crossover. And there we go. That's Cyberforce number 0. And that's an odd book. I remember when this came out, there wasn't a ton of hype. Not that I can recall, anyway. 93 hours, like 14, so I maybe wouldn't have noticed too much. I got to imagine, though, that this was some exciting stuff. If you were, if you had been reading Simonson back in the 80s, and it's like, oh shit, Simonson's joining Image. I think it's the only thing he ever did for them, though. That would have been cool if he stuck around and did his Ragnarok thing then, or something else. But yeah, that's okay. He's doing it now. Anyway, it's an interesting little, again, artifact. Yeah, if you want to see a classic dude, just drawing some very 90s characters. You're supposed to be gritty, but still wear silly costumes. It's all good stuff. But anyway, I think I'll wrap that up here. Thanks very much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like, hit subscribe, hit the notification so you'll be notified when I make more of these videos. And go over to Twitter, follow me at Team Blood Force. Go over to my Patreon, you can subscribe there. And that will give you access to all of my finished Blood Force pages, as well as these videos, as well as process stuff, sketches, all sorts of crap. And yeah, thanks again for watching. Bye.